John Colo at DiscountJuicers.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you, and I've actually been waiting to film this episode for you guys for actually quite a bit here. I've had this BioChef Living Foods vacuum blender now for the last several months, and I've been using it in my kitchen and testing it to make sure it's a legit product, and I'm glad to say that this is probably my favorite higher end vacuum blender on the market at this time for a multitude of reasons that you guys will learn about in this episode today. In this episode, what I'll be doing is I'll be unboxing the BioChef Living Food vacuum blender. I'll be sharing with you guys all the different parts that are included with it. Then I'm going to go ahead and compare it to a Vitamix, and actually why I would choose to buy this blender over a Vitamix at this time. And then we're going to go ahead and get into talking more about the benefits of vacuum blending as compared to regular blending, say in a Vitamix. And then we're going to go ahead and get on to doing some testing with this machine for you guys so you guys can see the results you guys are going to get in a Living Foods vacuum blender. First, we're going to be blending up some dry ingredients such as flax seeds into a powder to see how fine of a consistency this blender will make. Then we'll be doing a wet test. We'll be basically blending up dry nuts with water to see and make sure that it actually grinds up and blends up all the nuts, fractionates them into a nice liquid there. And then finally, I'll be doing a demonstration of making a blended salad, which is something I really like to do to ramp up the amount of fruits and vegetables that I get to include in my diet. So this is going to be quite a long episode. I will put time links down below in the description as well as the first comment so you guys could jump to the applicable parts. If you guys don't like my long videos, jump to the summary at the end. Then I will sum up basically everything that I've showed in this episode in my own words, in my opinion, and make some recommendations, or not, for you guys out there. Alright, so anyways, on with the show. I guess the main reason why I like the BioChef Living Food vacuum blender is because this was a blender first, right? And that's very important. Some of the other vacuum blenders that have come out on the market, you know, they're brand new appliances, and I think this is great. There needs to be more vacuum blenders out there. But they basically took a blender, designed it from the ground up to basically be a vacuum blender. And that's really great. And some of these blenders are brand new, so if they just came out, you know, I have literally broken almost every vacuum blender that I've used to this date, one way or another. The vacuum pump motor thing went out, the blender went out, bearings went out. I mean, some crazy stuff had happened to basically the carafe broke on all the vacuum blenders I've used, except this guy right here. Haven't been able to basically break it yet, so I'm on my first one still. So that's really important. Although I must say that all of the companies of the vacuum blenders that I bought that I did have issues with, they have all taken care of me under warranty. So that's really important for me to let you guys know. Anyways, this guy, it was actually a blender first before it actually came into being a vacuum blender. And I think, you know, being a vacuum blender is great, but I also think that it needs to be a dependable and well-powered and thought-out blender in the first place. And I know some of the companies now making vacuum blenders may have a lot of experience making juicers, but they don't have a lot of experience making the blenders. That being said, this blender has been out for 4 years, on the market as a standard blender, you know, so it has a proven track record with many happy customers of the Living Food blender itself. And now they're coming out with the vacuum version of this. So basically the motor base is tried and true, you know, it's solid, the carafe is solid, and that's some of the issues I've had with other vacuum blenders. And now you could use this with a vacuum to preserve even more of the valuable phytonutrients that you guys will learn about. So yeah, that's the number one reason why I like this. It's just pretty much dialed in. Also, they have a nice full color box here. It just says BioChef Living Food Kitchen Living Food Blender. And it says, cook soups, create condiments, chop fresh products, hot beverages, grind nuts, grains, and coffee, blend smoothies, enzyme protection. And there's a picture of all the different things you guys could do with this. And it says the BioChef Living Foods Blender is a highly regarded member of the BioChef Healthy Kitchen range and continues to bring nutrition to you all around the world. Its revolutionary technology, versatility, and performance make it a necessity companion for your health whilst retaining vital nutrients and enzymes. The BioChef Living Food Blender makes health easy. All right, so it says easy to clean, commercial grade motor, touchpad, 10-year motor warranty, enzyme protection technology. And here on this side of the box, they actually really have a nice box with all the different things explained. They just talk about the different parts. It's a 2-liter BPA-free Triton jug, has Japanese stainless steel blades, 6 blades, has patented enzyme protection technology. Basically, the Tamper has a built-in thermometer that I'll show you guys. You guys can monitor the temperature to make sure your food does not go over 118 degrees if that is important to you. Also, basically, it has a well-designed base that's actually nice and stylish, unlike the boxes of most modern-day blenders with like a couple switches. This actually has a touch panel and is computer-controlled and actually designed in Italy, which is quite cool. So anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and unbox this guy and show you guys what's included. Alright, so the first thing coming out here is we have your BPA-free carafe, and I do believe it, unlike some other blenders I've tested. BPA-free, this is the Eastman Triton, and it has like a lower pitch resonance when you tap it. Also, it kind of flexes a little bit easier than a non-Triton carafe, which is polycarbonate, which does have the BPA. In addition, it has a nice solid base with a nice metal here on the bottom to kind of keep it weighted so it doesn't easily tip over. And in addition, I don't know if you guys can see in there, but basically there's 6 stainless steel blades here made in Japan. So it's just basically your standard star with 2 blades sticking up to help grab things that might otherwise float on top of the blades. Nice handle as well. Easy to clean, has a nice see-through port right there. And yeah, just a well-designed carafe, nice and light. So that's the carafe. Let's see, next part we got coming out, of course, is we have the lid. I have complained about vacuum blender lids on other vacuum blenders that are hard to clean because they have a lot of nooks and crannies. This guy actually is one of the easiest to clean. I mean, it's just well thought out, pretty good here. I could use a dish brush and just brush out in here. The vacuum port is right in the middle. This part comes out for easy cleaning as well. And in addition, I do like on here that they actually have a 3-layer solid sealing ring so that the vacuum will stay inside the carafe. And that's that guy. Let's see what else we got. All right, and then we got the Tamper coming out. So, the Tamper is not to be used with vacuum blending. So that being said, I would basically just chuck the Tamper away because for the most part in my house, I pretty much do not blend unless I'm blending under vacuum. So that makes this Tamper obsolete, in my opinion, although I know some of you guys still want to not vacuum blend. It might be important to use your Tamper and stuff sometimes, which you guys could do with this. Some other companies that make vacuum blenders don't even give you the option or have a Tamper available, which I think is sad, so this gives you the most flexibility. In addition, this Tamper is like a first, I've seen a Tamper like this on like a high-end Bugatti blender that's over $1,500. But this one actually, like that, has a little dial on the top. I don't know if you guys can see that on there. But it's basically a thermometer. So on the bottom here, there's a thermostat probe. So how it works is, if you are using the Tamper, right, it only works with a Tamper, you can put the Tamper in there. It's not going to hit the blade, so you can push your ingredients into the blender. And at the same time, it actually is measuring the temperature of your liquid. So if you're making a soup, you want it to be a raw soup, but you don't want it to cook soup, then you can make sure that, it's 115 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and stop the blender, and I'm going to drink my soup. It's going to be nice and warm. I'm not going to burn my tongue on it. It's not going to be super piping hot, because they have the EPT, enzyme protection technology on there to measure your temperature. So that's quite cool. Let's see, coming out also. We have the full color instruction book, and there are a handful of recipes in there. I think they should probably put a few more recipes in there, but maybe about a dozen recipes. But mostly it's just your instruction manual. And then also coming out, we got the main base. Let me see if I can grab this carefully out of here. Grab on it somehow. All right, yep, no problem. There are no handles on this, but I was able to grab it from the bottom. And what I like about this base is, look at this. This has got to be one of the nicest looking bases of all the blenders. A lot of the blenders look archaic. I really dislike those blenders from like the 50s, the 60s with like 10 buttons, man. I mean, those buttons, yeah, that's great because they run into different speeds. But all the time, I would get crap and just food particles and liquids stuck down in there, and it just started looking crappy. And even modern blenders of today still have a couple switches and stuff. I mean, come on, man. This is like, they got iPhones and all this stuff, touch screens. You don't even need buttons or switches anymore. This is a completely touch panel. Also looks kind of nice. I mean, it almost looks like space age. It's not just your standard box. And actually, this base was designed in Italy, as it says on the bottom. And I think even this blender base is designed by the same people that design the high-end Bugatti blender, which is actually quite cool. Of course, there is cord storage on the bottom, so the cord easily tucks in out of the way when you don't need to use it. In addition, I like that this top base that actually has that rubber pad for noise dampening is kind of like built-in and flush mount. Along the Vitamix, it actually sits up, and that's just more nooks and crannies for crud to develop in. This is nice flush mount, so it's a much cleaner look. In addition, there's a metal to metal contact here on where the carafe on the bottom, which is metal, sits into this. It's also metal. And in addition, there's this little sensor thing right here, which is a switch, which will not allow the blender to come on or turn on or to spin unless you have the carafe properly in place. The carafe could go on any of the 4 different directions, and there are little tabs here that poke down the sensor to allow the machine to come on. Now this motor base this has a commercial quality motor inside there, 1,680 watts. This produces up to 3.5 peak horsepower, but normal running horsepower is claimed at 3 horsepower, which is actually still quite powerful to get all your blending jobs done. This is like, one of the higher end blenders out there. And as I mentioned before, the motor here has a full 10-year warranty, which is a nice and long warranty. Now I do need to say that the rest of the warranty on the whole machine, aside from the base, like this top half here, is 7 years. So that's still quite long and matches other blenders that are out there. Now the special part to this blender is coming out, and it's not this guy, this is just the cap, so if you want to use it non-vacuum blending. But the special part to the Living Food Vacuum Blender is this guy, and this is the vacuum pump, and that's basically all that you're going to get in the box. This vacuum pump basically allows you to suck a vacuum out of the carafe when using this top here. Now this other top is just for standard blending, so should you be using your tamper, you could go ahead and put in this other top here, take it out and use the tamper. In addition, this top, should you be adding liquids, like if you're blending margaritas, there's no need to be using a vacuum blender, in my opinion. But you could do measurements, shot measurements, and just dump it in there, right? But now with this lid, which basically stays on my blender, this one has never been used, you basically just put it in there, and now this vacuum pump goes on the top. Fully automatic vacuum pump, runs on 9 volts. You can put AA batteries up into the top that you would unscrew right here, and they basically just pop in right there should you do that. I actually recommend and encourage you guys, don't use batteries. They're not as good for the planet. In addition, as the batteries grow weaker, the pump grows weaker. That's why I'm glad to say that unlike other companies that make a separate vacuum pump, the BioChef people have a wall wart or an adapter, so that you plug in this to the wall, you plug this little plug into the back, into the 9 volts, which this stays plugged in my wall all the time, right next to my blender, and I take this, I put it on the top, and if this was plugged in, you could press this button, and automatically this pump will start sucking all the excess oxygen out of this carafe, so that you can blend in a vacuum environment, so that you're not going to get all the oxidative damage that would normally occur during blending. I mean, that blender blade on this machine runs up to 32,000 RPMs. I think that might even be faster than a Vitamix. So I mean, that's a lot of cuts that are basically cutting and fractionating and opening up the produce, literally blowing them inside out to expose all the nutrients so that we can take them in and get a much higher absorption rate. But standard blenders, unfortunately, because they are cutting so much, blowing nutrients inside out, they are oxidizing some of the most valuable nutrients, in my opinion. They're the phytonutrients. So antioxidants such as vitamin C, vitamin A can be significantly reduced, as well as certain polyphenols. They tested in blueberries. Blueberries blended in a standard blender versus a vacuum blender. The vacuum blender will have 2.5 times more polyphenol content. Vitamin C and vitamin A, depending on what you're testing, I've seen ranges between like 2 to 3 times more of these valuable antioxidants that, in my opinion, are responsible for the anti-aging and anti-disease properties of some of these fruits and vegetables. So if you're using a regular blender, you're literally like throwing money and more important nutrients that may help you to heal if you are working with a disease away, literally. So that's why I do not blend unless I have a vacuum blender, unless I'm traveling and there's no vacuum blender and I didn't travel with mine handy. And when I have done that in the past, it's actually quite a difference. I almost cannot eat non-vacuum blended smoothies or things anymore because I'm so used to the texture. And you will not know this until you experience the difference of vacuum blending. So hopefully I'll show you guys a little bit of that coming up next. So yeah, that's pretty much what's in the package here. I think it's a good solid package. At present time, it's under $400 for this vacuum blender, which is less expensive than all the other high-end vacuum blenders out there. And then I do need to mention that on the vacuum unit here, this only has a 2-year warranty. And I think they chinched out on that. They should have a 7-year warranty on this guy, as well as the other components of this machine. This guy, once again, 7, 10, and then 2 years on that guy. But nonetheless, I haven't had any issues with this guy, aside from maybe the plug coming out a little bit and then it didn't work. Then I'm like, oh, the plug came out, and then I plugged it in, and then it worked great. All right, so I guess the next thing I want to do in this episode is actually we're going to go ahead and compare this unit to the Vitamix to find out why I would actually buy a BioChef vacuum blender instead of a Vitamix at this point in time. Alright, so now I want to do a demonstration between the Vitamix, which many of you guys may own or may be considering buying, and the Living Foods vacuum blender. And as I said, I would prefer to buy the Living Foods vacuum blender, number one, not only because it is cheaper than actually most Vitamixes out there, not only does it have a longer warranty, 10 years on the motor versus I think it's 7 or 8 on the Vitamix, and has a comparable warranty on the carafe. But it also has this vacuum feature, something that the Vitamix at this time does not have. And that is super important for those of you guys that don't know what vacuum blending is. Basically, you're removing the excess oxygen out of the chamber. So when you blend, you're going to retain more of the valuable phytonutrients. And that's the main reason that I like to vacuum blend. But what you'll find is you'll find other things in addition. Number one, you're going to find that your smoothies store fresher for longer. If you ever made a smoothie in the Vitamix and you've drank a bunch and then you left a little bit at the bottom because you're too full and then you go back to drink it a couple hours later, it tastes horrible, right? If you do the same thing in a vacuum blender, that smoothie that you made that you couldn't drink, tasted a couple hours later, it pretty much tastes just like the smoothie that came out right afterwards. As a matter of fact, in Japan, where the vacuum blending technology was invented, they've done testing where they do a standard blend versus a vacuum blend, and after it sits for like 8 hours after it's been blended, there's basically still about half of some of the phytonutrients they tested in the vacuum blended smoothie, whereas there's basically like, of the ones that were still in there after it was done blending, which is actually not much, there's just a fraction, maybe less than 10% or even 1% left. So, this is a really big indicator, and from my opinions, the antioxidants that are left in the smoothie after you're done making it protects the smoothie from further oxidation, which is not happening in the Vitamix. In addition, as you guys are going to experience when I blend the tomatoes in both machines, you'll see that there's going to be a lot more foam created. There's going to be separation in the Vitamix. There's also going to be extra air injected into the smoothie that may cause you to have gas and bloating. In addition, as you'll learn at the end, because I'm going to do this demo and let this mixture sit out for the rest of the video today, the blender, the non-vacuum blended in the Vitamix will actually congeal and start to make a jello kind of thing, which is kind of gross, whereas this one will stay nice and consistent and pour a lot easier. In addition, there's going to be less browning of food, so this is important if you guys want your foods to look good. Instead of making like brown dressing, looks like doo-doo in the Vitamix, right? It's going to keep a much more vibrant and nice color, perfect for Instagrams, but also for pleasure for the eyes before you eat your foods. In addition, from what I hear, there's also a lot more, blending action going on, and in general, given the same exact blades and all this kind of stuff, you're going to get a better consistency in the vacuum blender, because when you blend under vacuum, you're sucking out the oxygen, which basically expands the particles. So actually, before I go on, I want to do a demo showing you guys this very aspect. Alright, so next I want to show you guys actually how the vacuum process works using some marshmallows. Now the marshmallows, I do not encourage you guys to eat these things. They're super bad for you, but they will demonstrate for you guys how vacuum blending works. Let's go ahead and put that carafe there. Front and center, we'll loosely pack these marshmallows in there, and then we're going to go ahead and put on the vacuum top, and then we're going to go ahead and take the vacuum pump and press the button. And I want you guys to look very carefully at the marshmallows. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and speed up the camera so you guys can see literally in front of your eyes in literally just a few seconds how much and how bigger these marshmallows get. Like, I'm going to hold my finger right here where it was, and as you guys can see, the marshmallows are growing ever so bigger, because literally the air is sucking out and they are expanding, and that's why people say that the vacuum blenders are more effective at blending, because they basically expand the fibers so that the blades, when they're spinning, are more effective at cutting. So you guys could instantly see now that these marshmallows have started to grow significantly than where it started. Alright, so right before your very eyes, you guys saw the marshmallows expand and get significantly bigger. The other thing I like about this pump, because once you vacuum, it's stuck on. They actually have a vacuum release, which some other pumps don't have. So you just press this button on the bottom, and then you could easily remove your vacuum pump. Now if we were blending, we would blend now, because all the fibers are expanded. We pull the nice vacuum on the carafe, and what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit this little, we're going to pull this little tab, which will let out the vacuum. So watch these marshmallows very carefully as I do that. 1, 2, 3. Oh my God, they got smaller and shrunk down into just a fraction of the size they were before. This is truly the power of the vacuum blending. Now, they've been using vacuum food saving, and I bought a food saver many years ago. And they've been using vacuum to basically preserve foods, 2 to 5 or even 10 times longer, depending on what you're saving. And that's because in food saving, they know that the oxygen that's in with the food causes the oxidative damage to break it down, so it turns bad or goes bad faster, And now you can use that same technology when blending in a vacuum blender, so that you don't oxidize from those valuable phytonutrients, and your blended mixtures will stay fresher for longer. So that's how this works. Now, if you're thinking, John, man, that Vitamix and BioChef Living Foods blender, they look pretty similar. Yeah, these carafes look similar, but there's some big differences. Number one, this Vitamix carafe is polycarbonate. You hear that high resonance, and then this one, you hear it's a lot lower resonance. In addition, I've never liked these Vitamix carafes, because you gotta literally, there's no handle really to grab this. You have to basically push in one of the sides and lift up the lid, whereas on the BioChef, basically you could just lift that off really easily. I think the main clincher for me is that this has vacuum blending and this does not, unfortunately. So I guess with that, let's go ahead and put our tomatoes in. So we have 4 organic tomatoes. Now, I'm not cutting these tomatoes up, which may be a good or a bad thing. Both these blenders may sit and spin on these tomatoes, since we are not cutting them up, and I'm just going to basically make sure that they're in there properly, and see. And we're going to go ahead and put the tops on. And basically, I want you guys to see the difference between vacuum blending versus not for yourselves, in real time here. So, of course, the first step on this guy is that we need to pull a vacuum. Very important. We're going to put the vacuum pump on there. And unfortunately, once I hit that, we're sucking a vacuum, but you're not going to see tomatoes grow like the marshmallows. But what we're going to do is we're going to let that vacuum, and we're going to come back at you when it's all done. Alright, so the vacuum is done sucking, and basically it sucked probably about a minute or so, and it's stuck on now, so I hit this little button to take it off, and then I always like to after taking it off, I like to put it back on, press the button again just to make sure we have a good vacuum. It'll go ahead and re-vacuum, and then it'll shut off fairly quickly because it senses that there's already a vacuum on the carafe. Once we take that off, we could go ahead and put our carafe back on, and once we put it on, the BioChef lights up, and then basically you're going to get one flashing light. It's a red light, and then to turn the machine on, you got to press it, and then the machine lights up automatically. Now you have a few buttons on this machine. You have a plus and a minus, so that's for your speed control to make it go faster or slower. In addition, you can set the time and how long you could run the machine. You know, I think it's in like 15-second increments, and you could go up to 10 minutes as a cycle time. And then they have 3 pre-programmed buttons. One's for smoothies and fruits and vegetables, one's for making soups, and one is for chopping. And yeah, the 3 pre-programmed cycles basically will turn on, vary the different speeds, and then turn itself off. So literally you could leave the room and you know, blend without having to babysit your blender. Meanwhile, over on the Vitamix, as with most Vitamixes, you know, they have archaic, old-fashioned dial controls. You know, so this is your speed control, 1 to 10 there. And these guys have been known to fail. Your blender will start moving erratically, and or just not. This will just not work, and you'll have either then you know, 1 speed or 2 speeds with a low and a high, or whatever this is locked in at, and then you're just your on and off button. And this is my well-used Vitamix. It sits around pretty much now, but it's got all this like crud in the little areas. I mean, on this unit, very simple and easy to clean. No crud will ever get in there. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we set the speed to high. Oops, we're going to set the speed to high. So this has 10 speeds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and H for high. And then we're going to hit the red button once, then it flashes the timer. We're going to go ahead and hit this, oh, it goes by 5-second increments, excuse me. And we're going to go ahead and just basically blend it up. We're going to blast this for a whole minute, right? And so all I got to do now, since I set the speed and the time, I got to hit the red button again, and it's going to start. On this guy, we got it set to high. We're going to turn this on. We're going to hit this. We're going to let both blenders run for a minute. We're going to speed up this video so you guys can see the process and how it looks inside each one. 1, 2, 3, go! Alright, I want to point out a few things. Number 1, we got tomatoes in there that didn't blend. Hey, what's up, man? Alright, so we tapped it down. It basically got unstuck now. I need to reblend on that. On the Vitamix, they blended fine without doing anything. You know, it's been my experience on this carafe. This carafe kind of comes down to a funnel. So instead of being like nice and flat, it kind of comes in at an angle. So this bottom part tends to be a little bit more narrow than what I would optimally like. I think the Vitamix is actually even a little bit wider. I haven't measured it, but just kind of by looking, this guy looks a little bit wider. In addition, maybe I positioned the tomatoes a little bit differently in both units, and you know, blah blah blah. But nonetheless, we're gonna go ahead and start this one back up again. Once again, we're gonna put it to the high speed there and crank it up. I think we only need 30 seconds. Actually, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do another 30 seconds. But I want you guys closely this time, in the 30 seconds it's going, I'm going to not fast forwards, because I want you guys to see the blending action, right? In the blender under vacuum, because it's under vacuum, there's not all the extra air inside there basically bombarding and hitting what's being blended. And so really, your blender carafe is going to stay cleaner. Like basically most of the blending action happens in the bottom. It doesn't like flail and fling crap everywhere like up onto the top of the blender, and it's called glugging. And so anyways, let's go ahead and let's see, hit that, and let's go ahead and hit the minutes to, oops, I reset here. Oops, let's start that. All right. So we're going to go ahead and turn it up to speed high. Hit the button, turn it on to 30 seconds. And then we're going to, let's see, that's on high, we're going to hit this, we're going to hit this, and we're going to leave this in real time, and I want you guys to notice the blending action. Alright, so can you guys see on this blender, all the liquid is pretty much staying near the bottom. It's not really flailing up high, but look on this guy. The blender mixer's like going everywhere, it's going up really high, it's really violent in there, right? Under vacuum, it's happening at much more calmer, you know, much less damaging, and actually being more efficient, because when you're blending things up, things are not getting blended, things are sticking to the walls, all that stuff, and because all the mix is sitting in the bottom, it blends a lot more effectively. So, you know, basically now we got everything blended, and let's go ahead and take off the Vitamix top here. And I want to show you guys inside the top here. Look at this. Oh my God, it's actually steaming inside the Vitamix. Lots of stuff you got to clean inside there. And then over on the vacuum blender, yeah, it's also a little bit warm, but this is still under vacuum. We need to release the vacuum. So I want you guys to closely look at the mixture and listen while I release the vacuum. Did you guys see that? This mixture actually lowered just a little bit as I released the vacuum because it expanded the fibers. Meanwhile, in my Vitamix, if we measured where this was before and after blending, it actually is more because it's actually introducing oxygen. The vacuum blender, it'd be very difficult to introduce extra oxygen into the mixture because it is under a vacuum. And once again, look at this top. So even a vacuum blender, it's going to make your life simpler because it's going to make less cleaning and it's going to be more efficient. So like all my organic tomatoes that are now sitting on the top here, right, get brushed down the sink, not happening on the vacuum blender. Let's go ahead and pour these guys out at the same exact time and show you guys the difference. I noticeably see a difference between these guys in pouring. Like the vacuum blender basically poured a lot easier, and the Vitamix already starting to congeal from what I could tell when pouring. All right. So and I want you guys to look at that. Let's get that there. So you guys see the difference in that. So this one's a little bit darker, like red in color. This is a lot lighter. Also, if you look very closely, you can see air bubbles in here. And actually, I don't see any air bubbles in the vacuum blended mixture. I do see some, some small seeds because this didn't blend a full 2 minutes or 1.5 minutes because 2 of the tomatoes only blended a half minute. But yeah, there's air bubbles. Look at that air bubble. The air bubble is slowly escaping up to the top. And they're kind of coming up to the top to bubble out, and as you guys can see on the top there, if you can, there's air bubbles. And I don't know if you guys, if we rotate this, can you guys see how it's rotating if I do it really slow? It kind of is like, it's moving like Jello, whereas this, it's moving more like, liquid. Anyways, this is how it looks, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set this to the side over here on the side of the shot here so you guys can see the differences. Once again, Vitamix on this side, vacuum blender on this side. You guys can see the differences over time as I get this cleaned up, and we're going to come back and do our next demo. Alright, so next what I want to do is I want to show you guys how this blender can do dry blending. It says you could grind your coffee in a coffee ground, you could grind grains into flour, and they say that this blade is designed specifically to do that, just the way it is, and I don't really know. I don't usually grind dry things, but today we're going to be grinding some flax seeds up. And I do want to encourage you guys to get some flax seeds into your diet. They are high in omega-3 fatty acids. Unfortunately, most American diets and even vegan diets could be high in omega-6s. So I want you guys to balance it out with your omega-3s. Normally you would just put the flax seeds in the blender and then blend it. That being said, I want to put them under vacuum because as you guys know, fats, when they go bad, they go rancid, which means it's creating toxins in there, right? So, especially when grinding flax seeds, I don't want them to go rancid. And so that's why I like to basically grind them up under vacuum now. So we're going to go ahead and let this pump work. It's probably going to take about, 60 seconds. We'll come back at you when we're ready to blend them up. Alright, so now that we have our flax under vacuum, we're going to go ahead and put this guy off. We're going to put this on the blender. It's going to turn on. We're going to hit the red button, and now we have a selection. Now, one of the things I don't like about this blender, there's a lot of things I like and some things I don't like. Number one was the carafe that you guys learned about. Number two is they have 3 pre-programmed cycles. Like, these cycles may be good for some people out there, but they don't really meet my needs, especially when grinding grains or other hard items. I really like to have like a pulse blend, which you could, I guess, do manually, which I will do in this case by using the pulse button. And so how that works is you just basically hold down the pulse button and you let it go, and then it pulses it at full blast. Because I want it to run and then stop, and then I want to let kind of the mixture fall back into the blades. And we're going to go ahead and hold that down. Now that's working pretty good, but basically the problem I'm seeing is that some of this stuff in the bottom is not fully circulating around. You know, usually a carafe that's actually a lot wider will help with this. Carafes that are more long and narrow, things get to kind of get stuck at the bottom. So we're just going to basically tap this carafe up a little bit to loosen all the stuff that did not get blended, and then we're going to go ahead and put it back on there. And then we're going to go ahead and re-blend a little bit. Alright, so I think that did it. We basically had a couple rounds where I would actually just blend on high speed, and then I would stop it, and then I would basically tap it down, agitate the mixture to get it kind of mixed up, so when I re-turn it on, hopefully any kind of small fragments that didn't get blended, got blended the next time. You know, maybe I could do a little bit less flax seeds, and then it wouldn't get stuck up as the bottom as much, but I've done 5 ounces in other blenders. So I want to see how this one would do. So we're going to let out the vacuum there and pull that out. Smells really nice. Tap that down, and we're going to go ahead and put this through a sieve to see how much, you know, if the flax seeds are like smaller particle size than the sieve, and how much is not. Alright, I think we're all shaken down here. The powder we did get is actually really nice and a fine texture, like really nice. And then we are left with a small bit of unground seeds. Now this is normal, I've experienced this in other blenders. Let's see, some of the seeds are whole and then some are actually just kind of cracked. Now the other thing I want to warn you guys about is, you know, when you're blending dry ingredients, very important to make sure your carafe is completely dry. Do this the first thing that you do in the morning after your carafe has been fully dried out. If there is some wetness, then what will happen is this. There'll be, you know, flax that had some liquid, moisture, and then they would stick to the wall. They might stick together, and then they will not fold properly into the blade. So I think that's might have been what might have happened today. That being said, most blenders may not blend all the flax seeds, especially if you put too many in there. But definitely it passed this test here on the flax. The next thing was unplanned, but I'm going to do it anyways, is I'm going to go ahead and try to make macadamia nut butter under vacuum in the BioChef vacuum blender. Basically that was 16 fluid ounces of macadamia nuts going right into the blender. We're going to put that lid on. Oh, maybe we'll put my the flax seeds that didn't get ground up last time just to get rid of them. And I do encourage you guys, when making nut butters, to add flax seeds to them to better the omega 3 to 6 ratio in there. Now the thing is this, like generally you would make nut butters with a tamper. You would not do it under vacuum, and in general it will not work. And so I'm going to say that again, in general, making nut butters in this method will not work with this vacuum blender or any other one, because most nuts do not have a high enough oil content to be turned into butter under vacuum when you're not tamping. You're going to blend it up and it's basically all going to stick to the sides. It's not going to make a nice butter consistency. That being said, I'm using some macadamia nuts that are low temperature dehydrated that have some of the highest oil content of all nuts out there. So if you guys do this with the same exact nuts, with the same exact blender, it's going to turn out just like I showed you guys. But if you buy Mac nuts from the store, it may not work out because they might not have a nice high oil content. These ones taste really nice and rich. Anyways, as you guys can see, we're pulling vacuum on this and it's already starting to suck. We're going to go ahead and let that run about another, I don't know, 45 seconds, come back at you when we got a full vacuum on it. Alright, so the vacuum has turned off. We're going to go release it and press it one more time just to make sure we got a good vacuum on there. It usually turn back on for another, I don't know, 5 or 10 seconds and be like, alright, we got a good vacuum, and then it shuts off. So let's see what happens. Alright, I think we got a good vacuum on there. Let's go ahead and pull that off, and now let's go ahead and blend up our macadamia nuts. To do that, I think we're going to try to do the automatic function, and we're just going to hit basically the soup button. We selected the soup button, we're going to hit the start, and it's going to vary the speed that's running. We're going to stop it because what happened is all the nuts are basically clinging to the side. I would much rather have like a pulse blend feature. Once again, blend high for 3 seconds, then stop for 2 seconds, blend high for 3 seconds, and have that continue until it's done. Programming on here is not optimal for me. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and turn it on and hit the pulse button here, up on high. and then let it go. Let the nuts kind of dunk back down, blend high, let it go. And we're just going to continue to do this until it gets blended up, so it might be a while. Alright, so as you guys saw, it took a lot of cajoling to basically get this into a nut butter, but I was successful. Now, I do want to say I lost vacuum during this episode. Let's let the vacuum off. There's basically very little vacuum in the carafe, and I believe that is my fault due to the fact that if you guys look closely, there's lots of flax bits and particles. So if you have any particulate, including water or just a speck of food in the wrong place, and this does not make a good seal, it will not keep a good vacuum. And that's not the fault of the blender, because I think this is the only time actually that I haven't been able to keep a good vacuum on this blender. Every other time it's worked great for me, but because I neglected to clean it in between because I was being lazy, we lost vacuum. Now the other thing I will say is that, unlike other companies that may include some extra plastic, or silicone, rubber parts, the Living Foods vacuum blender does not. So I think they should include some extra, rubber gasket materials, maybe this gasket here, as well as the gasket here on the lid, because if these gaskets fail, then people will not be able to pull a vacuum on the blender, and then they'll have a customer service inquiry, whereas I'm sure these parts, to include it extra, is going to cost, under $1 for the manufacturer to do that, plus it's a nice gesture so that people could be more independent and, replace those on their own should they need to, instead of calling to make that happen. Nonetheless, we had some nuts still stick to the side, but even though we weren't able to do that with some cajoling and difficulty, I want you guys to look at this nut butter that we made. Look at that, man. Nuts went in whole, and now literally we're pouring this out. Now this, I don't know, actually maybe I'm going to have to use that thermometer here, but this is definitely warm, for sure. It's not cool. While this blender did make my macadamia nut butter like I have done on other vacuum blenders, I will say that the other vacuum blenders did it a little bit easier, than this. There's a few reasons for this, in my opinion. Number one, I think the primary reason is the carafe shape. Once again, I mentioned that earlier. I'm going to mention again. For smoothies, this carafe shape is great because you are blending in liquids. The problem I have, because I blend really thick stuff, and I'm not using a tamper because under vacuum blending you can't use a tamper. The thick stuff will basically get stuck in this carafe because it is more narrow at the bottom. I'd like to have a new style carafe that's like a lot fatter, which they could redesign for this to have like a short and stumpy carafe, like on the Dyna Pro vacuum blender. I like that carafe a lot because it allows for better and easier macadamia nut blending, as well as for things dropping into the blender, which I think is optimally a better shape for vacuum blenders. But nonetheless, this did work. And then what I'll do is I want to show you guys, I'll scoop the rest out later, but I want to show you guys actually the power of this pump here and why I like this pump more than any other automatic pump that I've found. Because literally what this allows you to do is you can take your nut butter that you just made in an oxygen-free environment, and then we're going to go ahead and take a standard mason jar top. This is wide mouth, and then we have a food saver wide mouth jar attachment we're going to go ahead and put on the top. And this does not work with the standard attachment, only the wide mouth attachment. We take this pump, we put it around the top. This looks like it fits perfectly right around the top. We press the button, and if we do that, what happens is now this pump is pulling out the oxygen in between the lid out of the container. And then we pull that off. We're going to put it on one more time just to make sure we have a good vacuum. I don't know if you guys heard the click, but that's the top flexing literally as it's pulling vacuum on it. We could pull that off, and now I don't know if you guys can see that, but basically the top is concave because it's sucked in, and even if we store this upside down, which you would not want to do, otherwise it would fall all over, this is now under vacuum, so now I'm basically vacuum storing my amazing nut butter that I made in the Living Foods vacuum blender. This will basically go in my fridge, and I'll eat this a little bit at a time until it's all gone. And yeah, so this pump, you can store your nut butters, your smoothies, anything you make in the vacuum blender, you can store it, or even other foods you don't even store, like buy strawberries, right? Wash them, dry them really well, put them in a mason jar with a lid, put this on there, suck out the oxygen, put that in your fridge. It's going to last 2 to 4 times longer. This is amazing. If you need to get this special attachment lid, the link is in the description below, so you guys can find this link online. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and get this mess cleaned up, and we're going to come back at you doing a wet blend test. So now we're back and ready for our next test, and what we're going to do is a wet blend test, right? And I do a lot of these tests because they're things that I do in my personal blender or my blender at home that are pet peeves of mine, right? And so if you notice, sometimes I'll do some of these same tests in different blenders. You could watch the link I did below comparing my other two favorite high-end vacuum blenders on the market, so you guys can see how it did on the flax seeds as well as this to compare notes, because I'm using the exact same amounts of ingredients. That being said, without having to watch that video, I would just tell you guys to get this unit because it actually is a lower price. And you know, of all the machines, which there's no machine that's like totally perfect, each machine has their pros and cons, so watch my videos carefully and find out which one makes the most sense for you. And at this time, I think this one makes the most sense, although I'll recommend some improvements they can make at the end of this video. So anyways, this is the wet blend test, and what I hate more than anything else is when I'm blending a dressing at night, right? I like to use whole food source of fats. You'll never find me putting olive oil in my salad dressing because olive oil, I'm sorry guys, it's not healthy, right? It's an extracted fat. You're getting a lot of calories with very little nutrients, if any at all. Instead, I like to use whole food source of fats. I will put whole olives with the pits removed into my blender to get the olive flavor, to get the olive oil plus all the other olive polyphenols, vitamins, minerals, and fiber in my dressing. One of the favorite things to use is nuts. So today we're using 1 cup of hand-shelled, by me personally, almonds, as well as basically 2 cups of water. And you know, for a dressing, I might use, you know, I don't know, 1 cup of orange juice and 1 cup of macadamia nuts, and the blender should then turn in the nuts into basically a creamy, and the orange juice into a creamy macadamia nut dressing. You could use any nut, whether it's almonds, macadamia nuts, cashews, pecans, pistachios, filberts, hazelnuts, the same thing, pine nuts, or whatever you guys got, right? Blend those two together. But what I hate more is I'm trying to turn this into a dressing that actually is like a cream, and I hate when there's chunks of nuts in there. And it's like this is the demo simulating that to make sure there's no chunks of nuts. Some other vacuum blenders I have used before they improved them actually left chunks, which is not alright in my book, right? I got a blender to blend stuff up. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and turn this on, and what I think we're going to do this time for you guys, we're going to go ahead and set this to a high speed, press the button, and we're going to set it to run for, I don't know, maybe like 2 minutes, and we're going to hit the start. We'll just fast forward this so you guys can see the process of it blending, and we're going to come back at you. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pour it through a fine sieve like I did with the other blenders to see how much of the blended stuff goes through the sieve and if there's any chunks that remain. Alright, let's hit the start. Oh, I forgot a very important step. I forgot to pull a vacuum. Oh my god. So let's go ahead. Pull a vacuum. You know, I like to pull a vacuum on anything I'm blending just to prevent the oxidative damage. It also makes a nice texture. You know, so those of you guys that are blending fats, especially if you guys are blending oils, not that I recommend that, when you blend things under vacuum, it makes a nice, more fluffy texture. You know, this is one of those things that I really can't explain too well, but if you guys get a vacuum blender and you blend up like avocados with some orange juice to make a creamy orange juice avocado dressing in a standard blender or not under vacuum, right? And then you do it under vacuum, 2 different totally beasts. I mean, you literally, not quite, but almost have more of a consistency of a whipped cream avocado with the orange juice in a vacuum blender, whereas in a standard blender, like, it's just more solid and like mush, right? It's something having to do with the air being removed really kind of enhances like the texture of the fats. It's totally amazing. So if you guys are one of those chefs that do, that make all kinds of crazy stuff, you guys got to be having a vacuum blender because it'll take your stuff to the next level that unfortunately most other chefs don't have at this time because vacuum blending is still rather new. Oh my god, and look all the bubbles I've created just by turning it on. Like, I don't think that would have happened if this was under vacuum. Anyways, I cleaned out after the last test all the flax meal, so we should retain a good vacuum this time. Alright, so we pulled the vacuum. We're going to let the vacuum off. We're going to go ahead and pull it again. and just make sure it stays on just for you know, a couple minutes or maybe a couple seconds, and then turns back off to ensure that we have a nice vacuum on there. It does look like that. The other thing I want to mention that's something nice I like about this unit, unlike some other vacuum blenders, you'll see the lid like literally will pop in a little bit because this lid is flexible. It'll literally suck in to let you know that it actually has achieved vacuum. I think we got a good vacuum on there. We're going to go ahead and lift that off, and we're going to go ahead and once again start this up for 2 minutes on high here. Alright, here we go. Alright, 2 minutes occurred and it turned off on its own, so that's really nice. As you guys can see, we have a nice blended mixture. We didn't get any, you know, because we had enough liquid in there, blended perfect despite the more narrow bottom. It also kept a vacuum. And I want you guys to notice this top here, how it's like looking right now. I'm going to go ahead and lift this up, and I want you guys to see this literally raise up. Do you guys see how this center part just basically raised up to let you know that it was still under vacuum? So yeah, this kept vacuum without any issues. There's our mixture, like basically this is a blended almond milk. We're then going to go ahead and pour through this sieve to see how much extra residual, if any, we have any big chunks or what is left. I think we're going to do this and we're going to come back at you once I got all this sieved out. Alright, so it looks like I pretty much got this all sieved out there. You guys can see what's left here. I'm going to go ahead and run my finger through there just to kind of check the texture. So the texture is actually really nice and smooth. Let's see if I'm detecting any kind of bits. Yeah, I mean, no real super huge big bits. Let's see, there's one small bit right here that I feel, but it's like super small. But for the most part, this did a great job, blend to a nice texture. I'm confident that if I was making one of my nice dressings I like to make, pretty much this would have turned my macadamia nuts into a cream. Once again, that is what is left. You know, it's not maybe the super finest particle size, but you know, basically it's ground down small enough. And I was using my other sieve that I use on the flax seeds. Probably most of it probably would have went through the sieve. This is my finest one that I like to use when making nut milk. So yeah, definitely passed this test fairly well, in my opinion. Alright, so now I'm back and we're ready for the last recipe of the day. And before I go on, I want to say, you know, this video, it takes a lot of effort and work on my part to make it happen. And, you know, if you guys enjoyed this episode and it's beneficial to you, I would encourage you guys to support me in my work by making your purchase at discountjuicers.com. This is super important so I can continue to buy my food, so I can eat, so I can pay my electricity bills, all this kind of stuff. And I appreciate you guys' support because that's how I literally make a living, you know, by making videos and selling the product. So I want to thank you guys in advance for those of you guys that will support me. And I want to thank you guys who have supported me in the past. It really means the world to me so I can continue to do literally the work that I love to do, which is to educate people on the power of eating more fruits and vegetables. And the appliances are an essential part of my personal life and diet. And I believe the vacuum blender and a slow juicer, I'll put a link down below, you should check out, you know, are probably the two most important kitchen appliances you guys can own to make a positive impact and difference in your life. If you guys use them each and every day, so you guys could maximize the amounts of fruits and vegetables that you guys are consuming, that I found at a young age, that they're literally the most healing foods on the planet, and they give you the highest probability of chance of success, of healing, of also losing weight and getting off drugs. Like, I mean, I just got a testimonial today of a guy that watches me, and he got off his drugs, and this happens, you know, quite often, you know, and you should only do that under medical supervision. But basically, in my opinion, from what I've learned by eating healthy, right, our body is self-healing. The problem is when you're putting all this junk food in and all these things, our body is not able to heal, and, you know, then things go downhill fast, unfortunately. So yes, anyways, if this video was valuable to you, my other videos are valuable to you, please support me in my work by making your purchase at discountjuicers.com. I do have a price match policy, so don't think you need to save. John, I can save $5 and order somewhere else. Let me know. I'll be glad to match the price. Just send me a link click the contact link down below in the description. Let me know the lower price you found with the URL and all that stuff. I'll be glad to match the price if I'm able. Also, be on the that's on the same exact item and the delivered pricing. That being said, I want to encourage you guys to support me at full price so I can continue my work and my mission if my videos were valuable for you. Because, the manufacturer's not going to be making videos showing the machine when it messes up. And, I show it like it is. I'm not cutting out the part where it messes up or I'm shaking it or it didn't do something right. This is just how it is. And I wish there was a product that I could say, hey, buy this one. It's the best at doing everything. And that's why I like my videos so much personally. And that's why I like testing out the machine. So I can find out the intricacies, why this one is better than that one and why this is better than that. And then I share that with you guys so that you guys can figure out which one makes the most sense for you based on your specific needs. Of course, I have my own needs. And, I pick the machines that are going to work the best for me based on many factors. Anyways, what I'm doing next actually is my blended salad recipe. And I would encourage you guys to eat a salad and make it the main meal every day. Have a nice big salad. If you can't eat a big salad because you don't like chewing, right? That's all right. You could use a vacuum blender to let the vacuum blender do the chewing for you without all the oxidative damage, the extra air, lowering the nutrition that a standard blender like the Vitamix without the vacuum would. So that's what I'm doing today. Literally, I'm just eating a salad, but we're blending it. So we got literally over 4 cups of collard greens and other cruciferous leafy greens, fresh picked from my garden. We got several tomatoes cut up. We got a bell pepper cut up. We got a quarter of an onion cut up. We got 1 avocado mixed in there. We got all these fixings in here. We got some flax seeds for my omega-3s, some nutritional yeast for a nice cheesy flavor. We got some sun-dried tomatoes in there, ramp up that lycopene. We got some dried peppers from my garden to give me a little bit of heat and spice. We got some miso, a little salty flavor, plus some umami flavor, plus the beneficial soy nutrients that are in there. And then I got some taco seasoning. And then rounding it out, we got my just some leftover homemade sauerkraut, and my liquid that I'm adding today is actually sugarcane lemon juice. So it's always best to add the liquids to the blender first. Let's go ahead and bring down the carafe here, front and center. I think I'll add my sauerkraut in there first, nice and liquidy, and it doesn't pour all out. And so my trick is, we're going to go ahead and pull the vacuum off that. We're going to go ahead and maybe put that's like 1 cup of sugarcane juice. And we're going to shake this up to get all my delicious sauerkraut out of my container. And then we're going to pour that in. And voila! Container's pretty clean. Alright, next we're going to go ahead and, while this is actually going, I'm going to go ahead and suck a vacuum back on this because it's very important, right? On juices especially, but even smoothies, you want to vacuum save it right after you're done. Don't leave them exposed to oxygen, especially the sugarcane. Exposed to oxygen can go bad, and literally one day it'll start to go bad. But with lemon under vacuum, I've gotten it to store it for several weeks. If you guys want to learn more about storing your juices, make sure you click the link down below. Anyway, the vacuum's already pulled out on that, so that's really nice and easy. Next, we're going to go ahead and add our other water ingredients, including several tomatoes. For this recipe, I have pre-cut it so that we don't get any blockages. Once again, when you learn about deficiencies in a blender, for this instance, I put the whole tomatoes in and they kind of got stuck. Well, hey, make a couple cuts with your knife so that the tomatoes don't get stuck the next time, right? No big deal. I always want to encourage you guys to improve what you're doing, right? I mean, if there's a new recipe or new ingredients you can use, there goes the onions, here goes the avocado, got the pepper in there, and some of that delicious tomato juice on the bottom. Next, I think we'll put in all our leafy greens here. And I want to encourage you guys to eat leafy greens every day. My goal every day is to get 2 pounds of leafy greens. I don't always meet that goal. I usually generally get like 1 pound in. But they're the most healthiest foods on the entire planet that people unfortunately do not eat in enough quantity. Dr. Joel Furman, a friend of mine, raves about the cruciferous greens and how they're anti-cancer and anti-aging, all right? And then now we got all the dry goods, going right up on top. And that'll pretty much round it out there. And next we're going to go ahead and put our vacuum top on. And we're going to go ahead and put the vacuum on and hit the button. And if you guys look very closely at the bottom, you guys can see some air bubbling up. That's because there's airspace in between the tomatoes or in the peppers. It's kind of like trapped air, and it's actually pulling it up while it's sucking all the excess oxygen out of the container. We're going to let this run whatever it runs, 60 seconds, and while I actually go ahead and put this back in the fridge to keep it cold so I can keep my sugarcane juice fresher longer. Alright, so it looks like it's done. Let's go ahead and pull this off. The lid's sunk down totally. We got a good vacuum on there. Let's go ahead and put it on the blender. Turns on. We're going to hit the red button, and I think I'm just going to hit the vegetable button this time. Goes up to 1 minute 26 seconds. Hit the red button to get it to start. Alright, so as you guys can see, it's been running for a little bit, and as you guys can see, some of the greens at the top are not dropping down, so we're going to, shake it gently. We still got a vacuum on there to kind of get those to go back down in. I wasn't really liking that program too much. I think what we'll do is we're going to just go ahead and pulse it to get everything in there, and then I'm just going to go ahead and run it on full just by holding down the pulse button. I think that's the best technique here. Alright, so I got that blended up finally. Let's see what happened was, once again, the carafe is narrow at the bottom, so things will blend at the bottom. And if it's not a really liquid consistency, the stuff at the top won't really get sucked down. So with some cajoling, some shaking, I was finally able to get everything into the blender so that it mixed down, except for a leaf that's actually got stuck on the seal as it went in, so it actually never got dropped down in there. But otherwise, this did fairly well. I think a way to avoid this would be to blend all the wet ingredients. So basically, all the liquid ingredients up to the tomatoes, the peppers, and then before you put in the leafy greens, pull the vacuum on the unit, and then blend it all up into a pure liquid, and then take out the vacuum, release the vacuum, and then put all the leaves in and all the dry ingredients, and then that'll be literally sinking in water, push it all the way down, and then blend, and then it would work fine, right? That being said, I think I also did have issues with the cuvings, maybe not totally sucking in properly, but much less than this, and on the Dynapro, I didn't actually have this issue at all because of the fat carafe once again. Luckily this did keep vacuum, so let's go ahead and pull the vacuum on this so you guys can see. And I want to show you guys, actually, I don't know if you guys can see the height, but if I pull that, it sinks down. So let's go ahead and pull this top off here. And we're going to go ahead and pour that out for you in my mason jar. So it looks like a nice consistency there of my blended salad. I like to do blended salads when I'm late running to the airport, when I don't feel like chewing. It's just another way to get more fresh fruits and vegetables in you. Now I'm going to go ahead and sample for you guys. I'm impressed actually. A little bit warm because I ran the blender for quite a period of time, but it's kind of nice. It's tasty, but more importantly actually, it's a really nice texture. Like it blended up all the leaves really nicely. Like I really, definitely much better texture than the BioChef Air-Free that I tested in a previous episode. That's a lower cost vacuum blender. If this one's too rich for you, check the link down below for that one. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think it worked well once I got it blending on there. Oops, and we got some running stuff down. All right, so I think with that, I mean, it pretty much the Living Foods vacuum blender completed all the tasks that I set forward to it. Of course, it did some better than others. I think the ones that I had lots of liquid, it worked beautifully. So if you're just going to make smoothies and you want to get the most nutrition in your smoothies, this is definitely the blender for you. If you want a blender that really grinds things up to really fine particle size because you don't like chunks of stuff, then this would be for you. If you guys are considering our Vitamix and want to get, in my opinion, a better alternative to a Vitamix that has the vacuum blending feature, you definitely want to get this one, right? Now, if you guys are going to be doing a lot of blended smoothies and you don't want to hassle with stuff and you want to try to make sure you could be doing your macadamia nut butter and all this kind of stuff, right? Then you might want to get the Dynapro, right? The Dynapro costs more money than this, but it has an easier time doing those tasks. You know, if it's really important for you guys to save your food, then you definitely want to get probably this unit, because this is the best vacuum pump. It easily works with that food saver attachment with the wide mouth jars. I have half-gallon wide mouth jars, 64 ounces, or 64 half-gallon, 32, 24, 16, and even 8-ounce wide mouth that I could seal with this guy, and I really like it. I could just literally set this up, hit it, and while I'm washing dishes and come back and it's vacuum sealed, put it in my fridge, and then it's storing easily for, you know, up to 3-4 days. So like, I like to basically make salads and soups and my recipes in batches, and then use this very attachment to suck out the extra air. So now I basically have salad or soup or smoothies or blended salads, juices in a jar ready to go at any time. So yeah, I really, this is my favorite vacuum attachment of all of them that I've experienced so far, mainly because you can plug it in, and actually it's a pretty powerful vacuum. Let's see if I could give myself a kiss. Alright, so it's not going to stick on, but it does make a nice vacuum there. Alright. So let's see, what else? Yeah, so so the main issues I have with this machine, which are, you know, I have issues with every machine, are the 3 program cycles. I wish they were a little bit different programs. I would say look at the DynaPro vacuum blender. They actually have really excellent cycle times on that unit. That's number 1. Number 2, the carafe is just not properly designed for vacuum blender. It might be great if you're doing a Tamper and all this kind of stuff, like old school style vacuum blender. I really think they need a much wider carafe. So it'd be good to come out with an additional carafe, you know, that's more optimally designed for a vacuum blender. Number 3, I think they should include some additional gaskets here on the top with the unit, so in case there should be a vacuum leak, it could be easily taken care of because the parts are included. Other than that, you know, there's few faults with this machine. You know, I like the base. I like how it looks like all futuristic. It's fairly easy to use with computer controls. It could be programmed and then turned off. It could turn off on its own so that you don't have to babysit it. It has a BPA-free carafe here. It has a nice seal on the vacuum that actually has achieved to seal basically every time except that time that I put the flax seeds in there. That was kind of funky. I have had issues with other vacuum blenders. If you don't line it up properly, just right, it won't vacuum. This one hasn't actually even been an issue. Yeah, I mean, once again, every vacuum blender has their own set of pros and cons out there, and I want to encourage you guys to watch my videos carefully to see which one is going to be the best one for you. At this time, of all the vacuum blenders that I've tested to date, of the higher end vacuum blenders, between like the DynaPro, the Kuvings, and this guy, you know, I'm a frugal guy myself, and I want to get something that's the lowest cost, a good quality, that's going to do the job I want. And for most tasks and for most people, I'd actually recommend this guy because it is a lower you know, price point, and it pretty much works as well, and if not better in some cases, but also worse in some others, than the other higher price machines. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for this episode. If you guys want more videos with the BioChef Living Food Vacuum Blender, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up. I'll be sure to do more videos comparing this, maybe even to the Kuvings and the DynaPro, to show you guys you know, a comparison of them all. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you don't miss out on any of my new and upcoming episodes. I come out every 5 to 7 days in a row, or what new appliance you'll be learning about. Make sure you click that bell also. Even if you are subscribed, make sure that bell is clicked, because YouTube sometimes unchecks that, so you guys don't get notified of my new videos that come out every 5 to 7 days. Also, be sure to check out past episodes. My past episodes are a wealth of knowledge, over 500 episodes at this time. Teach you guys about the juicers, the vacuum blenders, and other appliances that allow you to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables in your diet so you guys can have the ultimate health ever. Also, be sure to support me in my work. If you guys enjoyed this video, if you guys are looking to buy this blender, check the links down below to make your purchase at discountjuicers.com. I appreciate that so much. So with that, my name is John Collard with discountjuicers.com. Be sure to visit discountjuicers.com/YouTube for special promotional offers for YouTube visitors. Alright, so before I go, I want to show you guys actually what happened to the 2 blended mixtures, alright? So once again, this is the Vitamix side, and then this was the vacuum blended side. So, I mean, the differences on these guys are not super different, you know, like I did in previous tests where I used the Vitamix and the BioChef air-free. You know, the colors are pretty close, but if you look at the top of this one, there's still more air bubbles on the Vitamix one. With this one, there's none. And I want to do a taste test for you guys. So we'll taste test the, I guess the BioChef. I mean, just tastes like blended tomatoes. Now we're going to taste the one from the Vitamix. Wow. I really taste a difference, like honestly. Like this one tastes really neutral. This one has like kind of like a, I don't know if I had to describe it, I'd say going bad flavor. Not to say that it's bad sitting here after, you know, several hours of filming this video, but it just has this weird kind of like flavor to it. So if you're like a super taster, you should have already got a vacuum blender yesterday. Now the other thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and pour this out to see if you guys can see the difference in consistency. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention is that this one's a little bit more darker in color. This one's a tad bit lighter, although we have not gotten any separation like I would have expected. But anyways, if we pour these guys out, maybe we'll do this in a slow motion. You guys can see that's you know, pretty liquidy. And if we pour this one out, I mean, it looks pretty much the same. I mean, I would say that it's congealing a little bit more, you know, than this guy over here. But, and yeah, so anyways, yeah, that's the difference. I mean, not super differences, but you know what? Every little bit counts, right? If you're not going to eat your expensive organic tomatoes or your smoothie you made because it sat around for a little bit and now it tastes horrible and you hate drinking it versus you love drinking it because it tastes better, definitely a good reason to buy a vacuum blender. Whether it's this one or one of the other ones on the market out there.